Good morning. Welcome to Speak Easy. I would like to introduce our music guest this morning. We are so grateful to have Dear Dog Feather back here with us at Speak Easy. I'd like to tell you a little bit about her. She is a guitarist and singer-songwriter with folk and alternative influences. She's currently based in the Irish Midlands. She has been performing in local venues for several years and recently began performing her own original materials under the stage name Dear Dog Feather, as she works to establish herself as an independent artist. She enjoys the process of home recording and collaborating with other musicians. She is looking forward to performing at local festivals over the summer and has plans on touring Ireland with Netstone in the autumn. So here I leave you with Dear Dog Feather.
Hello. Hi. I'll just play a song. It's called "Leaving." I wrote it recently. You said you're leaving. Guess that's just the way it goes. You said it's shorthand, already planned, and I understand. I suppose you'll just go where the grass is green, not where it might have been for one heady day back in the summer. It was one heady day in the summer. You said you're leaving. Well, I hope you go soon. I don't need to waste any more time getting any more used to you, or for you to know I'll be watching for you at every open door, every heady day of every summer. It was one heady day back in the summer. You said you're leaving. Well, maybe that's something I should try. I spent all this time grieving anyway. I should just learn to say goodbye, and I could burn these bridges. I could sever all my ties. Hey, if you can do it, so can I. If you can do it, so can I. Some heady day, maybe next summer. It was one heady day back in the summer.
Wow. Thank you, dear dog Feather. That was beautiful. It was soulful. It was just, you transported me.
Thanks very much. It's kind of a bluesy one, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
usually do that.
So, welcome everyone to Spiritual Speakeasy. I'm so excited that we get to hear more music from Dear Dog Feather later on in the service. And I am Beth Gordon. I'm a grateful and joyful member of SpeakEasy. And SpeakEasy is where we speak easily about the limitless nature of God and of love and of life, just like in that song. And here we attempt to traverse tough and tender and truly important and impactful topics in hopes of cultivating greater understanding and grace. We are a spiritual community with a global message, and we invite you to link arms in helping us to expand that message. If you received a reminder text today, take a moment, turn within, and ask, who would I love to share this experience with? And then copy that text message, paste it into a text to that person, and send it off. It's that easy. And your efforts are the limitless nature of God in action. Now, here's the thing, it doesn't matter if they show up. What matters is that you played your part in being an extension of love. And it's always nice to be invited, isn't it? So it's so great to be here with you this morning. If this is your first time, welcome. If this is your second time, welcome back. Our hope is that you will make this your spiritual home. Our spiritual community is a place to engage. And the first step to do that is to just let us know who you are by putting your name on your Zoom screen. If it says something like iPhone or a phone number, we invite you to put your name there so that we can see who you are and recognize you throughout our service. SpeakEasy is an incubator of awesomeness. So many amazing things have come out of this community. This is where we love making dreams come true and celebrating the very best of who you are capable of being. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of our service. We're going to begin with Mari, who will be sharing invitations and announcements of all that's going on in this community. And then we're going to pass it over to Richard Ocean, who will be sharing our mission statement. And then that will be followed by Deborah Ann Pinsoff DePills leading prayer and meditation. And she does such a wonderful job of it. And then we have the pleasure of having a talk today on this topic of mother tongue by our very own Maureen Muldoon. And after the talk, Mari will lead us in the community offering. And that's an important part because we exist on the generosity of our community members. We thank you for playing your part and taking the opportunity to make a donation today. Your generous donations help us bring spiritual leaders, artists, and speakers to this very Sunday service and keep these important conversations going. And the links and the signups for all of the events, they'll be posted in the chat. And then finally, the main event, we have a conversation. And in the conversation, we encourage you to fully participate, to not leave your brains or your beliefs or your background at the door, but to come join the conversation. We don't have all the answers, but we love the questions and we love the conversation. So now that you have the roadmap of the flow of our service, I'm going to pass it back to Mari for our announcements.
Yes, so SpeakEasy, we are a virtual spiritual community. If you're new to our community, we have a calendar full of events on a daily basis. There's something you can find there. These are opportunities for you to connect with our community through daily classes, events, and they support you throughout the week in your spiritual journey. Some of the highlights for this week, we have today, right after service, we have the community affirmative prayer. This is a space for you to come in and practice your prayer time. Also today at 3 p.m. Central Time, we have Culture Club. They meet at 3 p.m. Central, so come join us. You're always welcome. So we invite you to do that. Also this week and every Tuesday, A Course in Miracles study text group that happens around 4 p.m. Central Time. And on Wednesdays, we have the opportunity to 12 Steps to Miracles. This is a 12 Steps program infused with A Course in Miracles that happens at noon Central Time. We invite you to just check out the calendar. That way you can see your times in your time zone, details and ways to sign up. These offerings are free. However, we request that you sign up for them. You can go to SpeakEasy, spiritualcommunity.com. You'll see it on the chat and find all the details there. Thank you. Pass it back to you.
There we are. Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard, and I'm here to read the mission statement. Unmute myself. I don't know if I've done that. I think I
We
have.
hear you.
You hear me? Okay.
You're perfect.
Thank you. And the mission statement. This is SpeakEasy's mission statement. Good morning. My name is Richard Ocean, as I mentioned before previously, and I'm delighted to share SpeakEasy's mission statement. SpeakEasy is a diverse and progressive spiritual community, sharing a message of love and engaging in conversations that inspire creative expression and spiritual well-being. We honor the Divine Mother and follow the teachings of A Course in Miracles and the principles of love. We see you as a unique expression of love capable of divine embodiment. Here at SpeakEasy, truth is our passion, love is our religion, care is our currency, peace is our goal. We attempt to speak easily about tough and tender topics so that we can navigate life with greater wisdom and grace. We devote this service to the Divine Mother, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, Buddha, and to all the holy names of God, to all saints and enlightened teachers, as well as their teachings, specifically the teachings of A Course in Miracles. We welcome you and are so glad you're here.
Good morning. I'm Deborah Ann Dvorachana Pinsoftopilis, and we are here to now arrive fully. So if you still had your phone on or distractions, let's put those away. And when I arrive fully, I wiggle my toes if you need to wiggle. I warm up my hands, and I'm going to invite you, place them perhaps on your heart. Today is Mother Tongue. Perhaps we should just soothe our neck and our chakra and our voice. And I noticed during that beautiful music, some of us closed our eyes, some of us swayed. So I just invite you to go within, go into the music and still feel it and hear it. And arrive fully, for today is a gift for all of us, and this moment is the gift. We just take the deep breath, and then I'll pray. Goddess is the divine essence of joy and love. Goddess is the divine essence of communication and laughter, of being one with ourselves and one with each other. I'm so grateful for this oneness within myself with love and laughter, expression, and communication. I am so grateful for all at SpeakEasy, those here today online, those here around the world online, and those who are yet to know SpeakEasy. We are simply one with the divine who created us, to speak and to feel easy in every word. So grateful for the opportunity to speak and laugh and sing and play, and so grateful for the silence and the listening. Special blessing on our speaker today, who just opens up her heart, her mind, and is just here to share all the words and all the songs and all the laughter. And a special blessing on all those today and every day who are here to fully express themselves in the divine likeness, love, laughter, and expression. Call it God, Spirit, or love. Here we are. And together we say, Amen. And so it is.
Thank you for that. Thank you, everyone. So here we are. It's time for the truly unique experience. Maureen Muldoon. Maureen Muldoon is always bringing some incredible creative flair to everything that she's doing. She is a mother of 4 human children and a mother of all kinds of other creative projects, including the woman who brought this community into the world. And so I am just so grateful to be able to introduce her and to know that we're going to be dazzled with her mother tongue as she talks about mother tongue. Maureen, I pass this to you.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deborah Ann. Yeah, yeah, the mother tongue, man, it is a deep and powerful vortex. And when I sat today in the last couple of days just asking, which I don't usually do, and the Course in Miracles tells us, like, always ask, what's the purpose? So I sat, and I asked, what's the purpose of this thing called mother tongue? And the good news is when you ask your internal teacher, it always gives you an answer. So the answer was to reconnect with our own sense of articulation and expression, to look at the written word and then to look beneath the written word and to look into the soul and to let it take us to places of mystery and mysticism and to awaken that mother tongue. So during this talk, if you have pens or paper or coloring or anything, it's okay to doodle and to write and to draw while we're having these conversations, because it kind of helps us to open up another way of listening. I recommend it. So I'm going to attempt to explain the topic in allegory and poetry, and I invite you to just let yourself doodle and contemplate color so that you can invite in and awaken that mystical mind and the mother tongue. In the maiden voyage, which I run with Bella once a year, there is this module called the Mystic. And it's where we invite ourselves into our poetry, where we step away from the known and the hard and fast rules, and we meander into the wordless mystery. And there are not many places that invite us into this imaginal thinking as adults, this intuitive perspective as adults, or what the holy men would call the outside the box thinking known as faith. So it makes no sense to our logical mind, our statisticians, this frivolous faith is not always valued by the productive world. And yet, if we take this path, it will lead us to some deeper waters, some deeper truths. And though you might think that it would be a distraction, it can actually prove to be a really well-guided and gracious and effective escort to where we really want to be, not productivity, but presence. But it might always not make sense, at first, because we're moving from the head to the heart. And yesterday, I was working with Richard Ocean on our offering called the Writer's Garden. And when we were putting together some curriculum, he suggested that we might begin by creating personal limericks and inviting people who come to the class, which starts in May, to create a personal limerick. And I was like, you got to be crazy. I'm not doing that. Like, that sounds insane. Like, what is this going to teach people about sacred storytelling? But because I refuse to be closed-minded and I refuse to teach something I haven't already tried, I said, okay, yeah, let's do it. So we went ahead and we wrote our personal limericks. And so this was mine. There once was a garden of writers who seriously couldn't be brighter. They mused and meandered and shared with such candor that they made the world, oh, so much lighter. And then Richard wrote a limerick about a man with road rage. And the foolishness of it all made us laugh like drunks, which we haven't been drunk in so long. Both of us are in the program. And it moved us in this direction of the muse. And the muse is also another module that's in the maiden voyage. The muse just loves this sort of ridiculous, frivolous, silly way of being. The muse, like the mystic, doesn't take us far. She takes us deep. And this is the doorway to the unknown. Or as I love to say, it takes us to the threshold of the labyrinth that will return us to ourselves. That innocence, that creativity. And it gives us this symbolless language that releases us from all the rules and regulations and the proper grammar and the proper speech and the proper conversations and the nice words spoken by nice people. Nice is a kryptonite to truth. Being nice can crush the true expression of the soul. So we get to let go of all these restrictions and release ourselves into this soul journey so that we can begin to access a truer truth, the one that exists on the edges of our linear logical thinking. We've heard this saying, you know what you know what you don't know, but you don't always know what you don't know. So they're on the edge of that unknown space. That's where our poetry lives. And why is it important for us to retrieve our myths and our mysteries? Because most of the profound moments that we move through on our own maiden voyage or hero's journey can't actually be articulated or contained or expressed through words. Kyle Gibran says, words murder thoughts. And so we have this urgency to almost paint pictures or to speak in imagery or to engage in poetry and some sort of symbolic sensibility to assist us in expressing and delivering the content that can't actually be contained or corralled in the linear language. Now, just stick with me. Try not to think, almost just let yourself feel into your own doodlings, your own drawings, draw yourself into your mystery, draw yourself into your mother tongue, and be okay with not knowing, not understanding, be okay with not living on the surface of the meaning that you've already given everything. Be okay with living in your mystic mind, your mother tongue, mystic mind, mother tongue, sort of one and the same. And this is how Jesus taught, and this is how Rumi taught, and this is like how Kyle Gibran taught. Many mystic poets, they gave us these stories, and we might have thought like this is a circuitous route, and yet the arrow of these offerings hit the mark every time in such a succinct and sincere way, through parable, through myth, through allegory, through metaphor. This is the way that our souls almost prefer to communicate. But in the world of communication, rarely do we say like, our brain wants to know. So rarely do we say to each other, as Richard said to me, can you explain that to me in a limerick? Like we just, like that's just not going to happen. So I'm going to attempt to explain this allegory and this poetry, and I invite you, to continue to just sort of play around with it yourself. The first question I want to ask you in regards to the mother tongue is a kind of obvious one, but the question is, do you know your mother? Do you know where she came from? Do you know what she came through? Do you know what she came to? We inherit our mother wounds and our mother tongue. And we say, I never want to sound like my mother. And yet we sound just like her because what we don't always hear that, because we don't always hear ourselves, because we didn't ever really listen to her to begin with. That's the problem with the mother tongue. We want to hold it off. The thing with our mothers and this entity of mother is like we press our noses to the window waiting for her to return. And if she gets even within an inch of us, we're like, get away. So we have this push-pull experience with the mother and with our own essence of our internal mother. And so if you spot it, you got it. You know, what shows up in your relationship with mother is something that lives within you. And if you judge what you spot, then you really got it. And we get to look at it. You know, when you say my mother was such a, or my mother is so, you know, we're on the cusp of Mother's Day. So we want to start to, you know, prepare the soil for this conversation of Mother's Day, and to attempt to maybe shift things into a healing, to get some healing around it, to find answers, and to come to that place that Rumi spoke of, which was emptiness, to come empty, to come empty to the moment, to come without seeking, to come without knowing. You know, this is not a quest room. This is a guest room. This is the guest room of your mother's house where she let you in. So we come to the threshold of this labyrinth, of this moment, and we pause, and we attempt to move together into this place of truth, to come to the moment, and to say to the truth, this is what I want, my beloved. I want the truth. So take me and liberate my soul and fill me with your love and release me from these two worlds, because the truth is not divided. It doesn't see two worlds. And set my heart, you know, set my heart on fire. And if I set my heart on anything but you, then let it set me on fire from the inside. This is a Rumi poem. He says, beloved, take away what I want, because in truth, there is no wanting. He says, take away what I do, because in truth, there's no doing. He says, take away what I need, because in truth, there's no need. And then he says, take away everything that takes me from you. So this poem by Rumi hits us right in the heart, and it speaks of the unspeakable love. It's this beautiful declaration, and it's so clean and it's so clear, and it's an example of the mother tongue, or the tongue that's dedicated to speaking truth or singing truth, in the case of dear Dogfeather or anybody else who sings. A Course in Miracles is a beautiful demonstration of the mystical mind and the mother tongue, because it speaks of and from this mother tongue, this first cause, this meaning that's written in a way that reminds us of who we are and whose we are. This is what the mother tongue does. It tells us who we are and whose we are, where we came from, you know, what we're all extending from, what we're all returning to. And honoring the mother tongue is another way of honoring your truth, your whole truth, and nothing but your truth. Because the acceptance of truth brings us to the present moment. Truth and presence are like one and the same. So when we get to this place of truth, and Byron Katie and all of these philosophies bring us here, is this the truth? Is this the whole truth? Who would I be without, you know, the meaning that I've made? So we get to this present moment. And in A Course in Miracles, it says, once you get here, we say God is and cease to speak. Because apparently it doesn't really matter what you say, which kills me, because I work with storytellers and I work with writers, and I'm so passionate about like procuring the poetry of people and to help them to find the river of their truth, you know, working with storytellers and stand up and doing sermons. But if you've ever worked with me, like, I like to hear the audible. For me, it's all about the audible. And unfortunately, sometimes I feel like I can hear too much. I can hear, but we all can, really, if we listen. The truth is, the words you say actually don't matter. That kills me as a wordsmith. The words don't matter. And here's something even more strange. Your vocality, the sounds that you're making to convey the words that you're saying, it doesn't really matter as much as this third portion of communication. What's under your word is heard more than your words. So that's your intention. But even more interesting is that what speaks louder than word or intention is your being, how you are being. And there's a scientific breakdown of it. And you can let me know what you think about this. There's a science study done at UCLA on communications called 55-38-7. Basically, 7% of communication is the word. 38% of it is vocality, meaning the intention. And 55% of it is body, or body language. They call it body language, but here, for spiritual, teaching sake, I'm going to call it embodiment. So you've heard that the body doesn't lie. Your body of life doesn't lie. Your body of work doesn't lie. You can paint your picket fences as pretty as you like, but we can read so much from listening to the unspoken stories of your life. You know, we hear all the time, like, be still and know, be still and know, but we don't actually want to be still because we don't actually want to know. We'd rather ruminate over our stories. Our stories can distract us. Our words can distract us more than our silence. And sometimes, though, it is our stories that are the modality that take us to our stillness. So it's not to negate your stories. If you need to tell your stories, you need to tell your stories. And many people are coming from a space where they've never told their stories. So it's almost like you have to go through this course to allow yourself to reach that true space of stillness. You have to honor your stories. And it's what the story takes us to stillness. And this is what our mothers knew when they told us bedtime stories, right? They knew that stories and good stories would help to anchor us and to settle us and connect us with a greater peace. And a good story could help us to be still and to know and remember. Gospel means good story. So I know many of us here are very committed to telling good stories and to helping each other tell good or better stories. But sometimes we tell the bad story, or the story that wasn't as optimal. And still we honor them. We need to honor those stories, because again, we can sort of smell the rotten corpse in the closet. So we want to like bring it all out. Burn your incongruency is what I would say. Don't be willing to just really strip down and tell your truth, your whole truth, and nothing but your truth. As an example, last Sunday at SpeakEasy, when Todd Fink was teaching, I felt this story coming through me, and I was like, oh no, here it goes. And it was an unfortunate story, and I was like, I can't stop it. It's just gonna come out of my mouth hole. And I kind of like said, like, I can't believe I'm telling the story, but it just, you know, it had to come, and it's okay. You know, in the weeks that followed, actually I got calls from people who also had unfortunate experiences, which we all do. You know, we all have unfortunate experiences. This is just part of the story. It's part of the whole story. The crucifixion is part of the resurrection. We don't negate the crucifixion, but we don't get hung up on it. No pun intended. So the story can be a holy map to help us move out of hell. The story can be a gospel of how we arrived in the truth to a more evolved version of ourselves. And when we honor our mother tongue, we speak of how we arrived to this state and place. In the 12 step, there's a really simple 3-step story map. It says like what it was like. This is the origin. This is the setup. What happened? This is the inciting incident. And then what it's like now. This is the hero's journey, the resolution, the resurrection. This 3-part story can then lead to redirection. So your whole life, you know, you're moving in ordinary, and then your whole life burns down. This is the inciting incident. And then you somehow rise up again. And yet you don't rise up the same way that you were before you got burnt down. And your life has taken you in a new course. And this burning down of your life actually can redirect you towards a more authentic journey for yourself. So telling our stories and understanding stories help us not to get hung up on those places where we were burnt down. And this is how we can honor the Holy Mother Tongue, by sharing what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And not just with our words, but also to include our intention. What is the intention of the story? And then also to include the embodiment, our embodiment of that truth. Many people say things, you know, many people tell good stories, but not as many live in the integrity of their word and wishes in a consistent way. So like their thoughts, their what they're speaking, and what's in the fire of their gut are all firing on in the same way. So to empower others is what many of us seek to do. And so this is how we might be out of integrity. I want to empower people to speak their truth. And then in the second breath, I'm so hard on myself. That's incongruency. I want to lift others up to be the light, but every chance I get, I kind of toss a little shade and criticism. That's incongruency. I want to raise brilliant, beautiful, benevolent, and bright sons and daughters, but I continue to devalue my own contribution to the world. That's incongruency. I want to be acknowledged and compensated, and yet I want to cut corners, and I want to get the cheap deal, and I want to get the under the table, agreements. So like these are incongruencies. And this is what what becomes the body of our lives. So giving up these inconsistencies is not easy, but keeping them is even harder. So it's not what you say, and it's not how you say it, but it's how in alignment your communication is with the truth of your soul. And at SpeakEasy, we're all about speaking easy. That was like the whole, seed intention of this community, to get people talking, to help people to find their voice, their visibility, and their value. And, for me, oh my God, when I started out, I was so shy, and I was so inept in regards to communicating what my thoughts were, what my feelings were. I mean, I was chased by 1,000 forms of fear. I couldn't tell you the truth if I wanted to. I didn't know my truth. It took me a while to go through, an acting career and get to listen to scripts that rang with truth in practice, telling other people's truths before I was able to tell my own truth. And then when I began to tell my own truth, it was so liberating that I made it my life's work to help people to tell their truth, because it felt so liberating. And also because a true story saved my life. And it was not the words and not the content, but the fact that there was a boy who told me this story, who was my father. But he told me the story about when he was a boy and his mom died. And that even though he thought that this pain would kill him, that it didn't. And it was the fact that he was sitting in front of me as a father who had grown up and had many lives and had much to tell and many stories to tell, that made me realize that I wasn't going to be crushed by this death of my mother. That he lived to tell so that I would survive. And it wasn't, that he just told me the story, because it wasn't his words, but it was what he showed me. It was what he showed me with his life. Your life is your story. My father only told me that story once, but I've been sharing it forever, because I'm like a zealot, it was a story that forced me into even publishing my first book, because I couldn't imagine dying without memorializing the story that saved my life. Like, that's how important that moment was for me in my life. I mean, I literally thought there's no way I'm going to breathe without my mom, and she's literally dying. And my father gave me that story. So this is what I'm talking about. It's not what he said, because his words were sort of rough and awkward and stifled and stingy, trying to make their way out of his mouth as we sat at the bedside of my dying mother. And yet this very rudimentary offer was my life preserver. This is what your soul story is to the world. So it's important. I think it's really important work. 2 days ago, I was sitting with this spiritual teacher, Gangaji, and she's an enlightened teacher, and she was talking about words, funny enough. And I said to her that idea that Kyle Gobran said, that words murder thought. And I was telling her that I'm a wordsmith and a storyteller, and I felt conflicted because I know that these words live on the surface. And she laughed, and she said many things to me, but I really can't tell you what they were. But I can tell you how she made me feel. That's what's important. How do you make people feel? There was a beautiful transmission that happened between us as we shared these concepts that just felt like sparked and fiery and fun and fluid. And you're with some people who you feel like you're having a beautiful tennis match with, and this conversation goes back and forth so fluidly. And then there's other places where you feel like, you feel like you need some oil, like you're like the Tin Man who needs a little oil. So you want to pay attention to those places where you're in flow. And here's the funny thing, when we were having this interaction, we were on this Zoom community, and the interaction between us wasn't just fired up between us, but like other people reached out to me afterwards, and they were like, that was a really beautiful interaction. I'm so glad that I got to see it. It was very beautiful. And I said, I know it was beautiful because I felt it. I felt that. And she was expressing to me how inept words were. And this is what she said, which I wanted to share with you. She said that her teacher, Babaji, first told her, you have to go speak, like I'm saying to you, like find your mother tongue. And she said she was so reluctant. She said, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I'm not a speaker. And he said, it's okay. It's okay. You go and you'll speak and you'll fail. I thought that was so funny. And he said, but it doesn't matter. Still, you must go and you must speak. I love that. The Course in Miracles says that symbols are, the Course in Miracles says using symbols that are most helpful to your brother, but don't get hung up on them. So use the symbols that are most helpful to your brother. So we use words because that's what's most helpful to our brother, but we try not to get hung up on them. These lips, this tongue, it's inept. These words, these symbols are twice removed, and sometimes silence is the best thing to say. But conscious silence, silence that is holding space for the pure presence of love that needs no words. And if you can get there, great. If you can get to that present silence, great. You can communicate so much. But we sometimes have to work through a few stories before we arrive at that kind of stillness. And that is okay, because silence that comes from fear of not speaking or of what other people think of us, or silence that comes from feeling inept, will eat us from the inside out. So you want to be able to open up this vortex of truth. If you feel inept with your words, speak anyhow. Don't wait on the sidelines of your life like you're watching a game of double dutch, waiting to find a safe time to jump in the dance. Risk being bad. Risk being foolish. Risk even if your words make you cry. Don't dress your message in words of other people. If you can find your own words, find your own words. Let them come from you like fresh baked bread. And for the love of all things holy, please don't take on odd cadences and false affectations when you speak of things holy. I know you've probably heard this. When people start to speak holy, they start to sound weird. They kind of bounce around on their words like a bored priest who's gotten too lazy to make a sincere connection. Sometimes I hear people attempting to speak like Reverend Beckwith, and it just leaves us staring at them in bewilderment as to why is this child trying to wear her mother's shoes? It feels like an imposter. You know what I mean? You don't have to try on your mom's shoes. Wear the shoes that fit you. Speak the words that fit you. We hear people put on their nice voice sometimes when they're speaking spiritually, when they're speaking of spiritual principle, this sweet cadence comes over and this extra generous, nervous laughter. I had that if you go look at any of my videos when I first started teaching, I had so much nervous laughter. I looked like an idiot. I look like a fool. And I would say to my husband, can you edit that out? And he'd be like, no, not much has changed. But it's interesting to notice the ways that we damn ourselves. Sometimes you'll hear somebody spit some spiritual truth, and as soon as they're done, there's a silent moment and they can't feel comfortable in that silence of their own brilliance. And so they add, I don't know. I can't stand that. When people say they spit truth and then they say, I don't know, and they immediately devalue what they just said. Be okay knowing. So, here's the thing about these false voices. Sometimes they're like those picket fences that we've painted, that we try and put on these false voices of niceness and this generous laughter. And underneath it is hatred and vitriol boiling beneath the breath. I don't know if you can hear that, but we can hear that sometimes. And now we hear not what you're saying, but who you actually are. We hear past the pretty words and past the content. We hear the soul and the shadows. So this is what can help us bring us up and out and heal. Your voice can be used for great healing. If you need to record yourself and really listen, let yourself do that. But as you continue to come to practice the mother tongue, the more you run the water of your truth through your being, you can polish off that ego, and you can remove the tainted toxicity that infiltrates your own tone. And sometimes you'll even be able to to open up to a voice that you didn't know you had. You know, sometimes you will be called to say even things that you didn't know. And sometimes, even worse, you'll be called to say things that no one wants to hear. Like, I didn't want to say that whole bit about like, we can hear your anger underneath your pretty voice. I don't want to tell you that, but you know what? It's the truth. Somebody's got to say it. So sometimes you'll have to tell the truth. But here's the thing, the truth will set you free. And once it sets you free, you can set free the whole zoo. And I don't think there's a child alive who hasn't fantasized about setting free the zoo. So we're all on the cusp of telling better stories, stories that are more earnest, more honoring of our mother tongue. And before I close, I'm just going to tell you a short little version of the story of SpeakEasy. SpeakEasy came from an exhale that was once called Sanctuary, which was our original spiritual community. And then it started to fold, and all the logos and lingo that we had used was all gone down. Nothing more than just a small group of people sitting around a yoga community talking about love. They were talking about love stories. That's what we were doing. That's what we're still doing, isn't it? We're still talking about love stories. But that is, then we moved, then we started to grow, and what we have come to find in this moment is that we shifted so much that we actually, during the last 10 years, have gotten clarity around our offering, which is to honor the Divine Mother. So our words and our intention of honoring the Divine Mother has yet to become embodied. We speak it and we intend it, but it hasn't reached embodiment. It hasn't reached form. And one of the ways you can clearly see that is in our website. So we're planning a new website, and that's more, adequately embodies who we are, which is so exciting. And the way that we're raising money for that new site is to, get us through the summer, which is notoriously a slow time for donations, is that we're offering a couple of classes. We're going to do a fund drive to assist reaching the goals to pay for the new site. Storytelling boot camp, Writer's Garden with Richard Ocean. And we want to invite you to the summer series of the Mother Tongue, which is following New Thought from the Feminine Perspective, Emma Curtis Hopkins and Marietta Baker and Myrtle Fillmore. And we have another round of Miracles Live 365 coming out. All of these places are beautiful ways that you can get clarity around your mother tongue. And these classes support SpeakEasy's new site, and then all the costs of to run a community, or bookkeeping and insurance and branding and facilitators and the rest of it. So that our website can tell our best story and honor our communal mother tongue. And I hope you join us in that story, because it's not just a beautiful thing to honor the mother and the mother tongue. It's not just a beautiful thing, it's a needed thing. Yeah. And that's the word.
Wow. I've been dazzled. I'm basking. That was so nourishing. Everything about that talk was just, it fed me and nourished me like a really strong mother. Thank you for all of that. We're going to continue the conversation, but first I'm going to pass it to Mari for the community offering.
Yes, thank you, Maureen, for that talk. And I'm looking forward to the conversation. SpeakEasy is a non-for-profit virtual spiritual community, and we exist on the generosity of our community members and guests. We thank you for playing your part and for taking the opportunity to make a donation for today's daily bread. Your generous donations help us bring spiritual leaders, artists like Dear Dog Feather, and speakers to Sunday service and keep these important conversations going. If you were spiritually fed today by the conversation, I invite you to just go within and see what is yours to share. No gift is too small. The donation link, you will find it on the chat or at speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com. And today I bless your financial contributions to SpeakEasy. I may this financial flow be multiplied for you in giving we do receive. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mari. I feel generous today, and I feel like this is going to be the most rich and nourishing conversation. I have so many wonderful things I want to share, but beforehand, I just want to announce this is the time for the truly unique experience of SpeakEasy Sunday service. It's our community conversation. And this is where we invite all of you to find your voice and your truth and share your thoughts, your inspiration, your awarenesses, any questions that came up, and to do so here in community. So when you feel called to share a question or a comment, go ahead and raise your virtual hand. It's located in the reactions tab on the bottom of your screen. And also when you do so, turn your video on if it's off, or leave your video on if it's already on, so that we can spotlight you when it's your time to share. So I'm going to get the conversation started. The part about communication and 7% being word, 38% being vocality, and 55% being body language. It's like we don't have to say a thing. It's just like how our body is expressing itself already is giving the vast majority of the message. And, you know, it just made me think of how everything is frequency. Everything's a vibration, you know? So the words are a certain frequency, but our tone is an even more powerful frequency, and our body language is an even more powerful frequency. It's like, that's who we're being.
And to have those in alignment can make you such a, you know, a strong archer who just like hits. Because here we're talking about these practices for spiritual evolution, for spiritual awakening. But in the world of form, telling a good story helps impact everything. It helps impact your business. It helps impact your relationships with your children. It helps, you know, it helps with everything. And so, yeah, but to have it in alignment, because again, like you can tell the level of truth. We can feel that. They talk about that in David Hawkins, you know, when he talks about the vibration of different philosophies and theologies. We are each our own church with our own gospel, and you can measure that, a degree of truth that you're emanating, and you can't fake it.
No, that's that right there, that each and every one of us are, in a sense, we're sovereign, whether we know it or not. You know, it's like we are an entire entity radiating a frequency out into the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, we want to be the highest frequency we can be.
Yes.
Yeah. And,
you know, Barb asked about classes. So the mother tongue class isn't up yet, you know. That just dropped in like 2 days ago when I was saying to Bella, oh, you want to do this thing? We wanted to do like a crash course in science of mind. But then Spirit guided us towards this idea of mother tongue. And so highlighting, you know, Myrtle Fillmore and Emma Curtis Hopkins and these amazing women who had a lot to share. And I don't think we've ever traveled that line. And then yeah, but the one that is up is the Writer's Garden. But there are places to come and our next round of Miracles Live 365, of course. So, but yeah, all of these places, every conversation that we have, you know, to begin it from a place of consciousness, you know, to really get clear on, you know, make my words holy, make my intentions holy, make the embodiment of my, you know, my exchange holy.
I see we have a question from Sky Nelson. Welcome, Sky.
Sky.
Hi there.
It's so
nice to see you. Hi, Maureen.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'm sure you have something to add since you're a storyteller, singer.
Yeah, love the music. That was beautiful. Thank you. And Dear Dog Feather, I think it was.
Yep.
Thank you. And I love the talk.
You.
I'm processing, it's really aligned with what I'm going through, of course, as it always is, And I was particularly moved by talking about the mother tongue, talking about a good story leads us into a bigger truth.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing a workshop right now. I'm leading and developing a program with a co-teacher named Cheslin Pierre-Paul, who's a language expert. And we're looking at the intersection of synchronicity and social justice work.
Oh, wow.
And she teaches, they, is a pronoun, they teach how to understand how your language tells you about your inner state and your judgments and your assessments. And we work with identifying the filters that we have, how we're perceiving the world. You talked about that in your own language, and that leads to a story. And so when I heard you talking about a story tying you into a bigger truth, it made me think of that. Our work it's about repair. So it's titled Synchronicity as a Tool of Repair, which is just another way of looking at the mothers, getting the mothers help in repairing our relationships, repairing the places where we've been hurt or hurt others, and seeing the opportunity to reestablish those ties.
Yeah.
And it shows up personally. I look at how it can show up for me in my life with my family, my friends, with my work people, but it also shows up collectively in the way that we interact at a political level and everything else.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I mean, even the correction that you made with your partner's pronouns, like we are on the cusp of cracking open all of the old, restrictions and rules and regulations that we put ourselves in these boxes, and learning how to use more inclusive vocabulary. It's so beautiful that we're here right now, literally trying on this way of being. And it's like we have training wheels on, but the generation that comes after us will have no training wheels.
Right.
It's so beautiful, but we get to be the awkward ones.
Yeah, it's taken me time. What's been really hard for me to be able to practice is checking in with people. Asking or taking the time to correct myself or ask if there's a correction needed, or because what happens there is a relationship.
Yeah.
And I found that I was always moving on to the next thing in my mind, assuming the last thing was either heard or not heard, but getting increasingly anxious and sort of ashamed at like feeling alone. Maybe I hadn't communicated myself, but I wasn't going to pause and check in. And it really took a lot of courage for me to learn how to pause and ask, is this landing for you? Or is that your correct pronoun? Or anything else?
Yeah, it's such a generous question because it says, I have more than enough time and I am listening. As opposed to when we get, our current platforms are not about listening, they're about speaking, and they're like me on film talking to you, and you can reply in the chat. But we're not having a conversation. I had this friend of mine who was talking about her offering and how it was all videos. And she was like, you just got to do videos and put videos out there. And I was like, I did that, but it felt so one-sided. And that's why I really prefer this fresh baked bread of conversations, because it's less controlling, number one. And for somebody who's trying to break controlling habits, it's less controlling, it's more intimate. It's fresh baked bread. It's not something that's canned.
Yeah. And I'm listening to all this and I'm thinking like, really, it's giving someone the gift of your presence.
Yes.
And the wordsmith in me loves it. You're giving them your presence. It's a gift, like presence.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So I also just wanted to comment, Sky, about this incredible idea of synchronicities as a tool of repair. We've been doing the class The Artist's Way. And in that class, that is a class to, it's a spiritual practice to your creativity, especially to move past any creative blocks and to be in a relationship with your creator, with the divine, and to then get back into your creative flow. And one of the signs that you're actually moving in that direction is synchronicities. And so it's a big part of that class to notice, are you having synchronicities? Are you back in that flow of the connection with the infinite? And it is, I sort of feel like that space, along with what you were talking about, Maureen, of just being in silence, no words, like that's the place where everything gets repaired. Everything comes back into right relationship with life itself.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. If I get still, my internal teacher will inform me where to go, what to do, and what to say.
Yes.
Then I can wrestle with it. I'm not going there. I'm not doing that.
Been there, done that. I love this work that you're doing, Sky, and I would actually love
Thank
to
you.
hear more about it. Yeah, it
Yeah, I
sounds
would too.
amazing.
Maybe we could host something at SpeakEasy with the two of you. I mean,
Would love to do that.
okay, let's
Yeah, you
talk.
know, I love that the artist's way is looking at the creative process, and then synchronicity is a key or a clue. And we
Yes.
sort of just turn that around and say, well, let's focus on the synchronicities. And then what are they showing you about how to be creative or how to prepare your relationship, either with others or with yourself,
I love
right?
that.
Your own
I love
creativity.
that too. It's like the yin and the yang.
Hmm?
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Well,
much.
I'll just let you know that we're doing a workshop this Saturday in the morning Pacific time, and I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah.
And then I'd love to come on with you for the future. We'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing your story.
Thanks for
Yeah.
the invitation.
Thank you. Mary. Hi.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation. Maureen, thank you for the talk. I've loved what I've heard so far. I just want to add this one thing. I have a hard time confronting people. And I was listening to a speaker yesterday, a Course in Miracles speaker. Her name is Mary Ann. And she talked about the idea of being the faucet and allowing the water, the voice of divine consciousness to come through. That the pipes are already laid. We just have to turn it on. And that just gave me so much confidence yesterday to think it's not my words that have to come through, but God's words, Divine Mother's words. So after I heard that yesterday, I spoke to my roommate about cleaning, because I have another room. I have 3 roommates in a house that does not have insulation. And we're all supposed to clean, but he doesn't want to clean. So the other roommates complain about him. So I thought about that spigot, my dad used to call it, or a faucet. And after I didn't even really think too much about it, but I was able to talk to him about cleaning, talk to him about walking around with hard-soled shoes. He's upstairs, we're downstairs. And talk to him about when he talks to me, he looks at my chest. And so I was standing like this.
Oh.
And I was able to talk about all of that, and I didn't want to offend him. Oh man, it was unbelievable. And I was like, how did I just do that? And it was this idea about being the faucet and letting God speak through me. And yes, it does take not knowing where the pipes are under the ground. It doesn't take that to turn on the water and let it spill out. Just to know that all I am
is the faucet. Just want to share that for anybody because it sure helped me yesterday. Thank you. Thank you for our talk.
That's beautiful, Mary. And I would just also add, when I give myself the breath of speaking my truth, that there's also an opportunity for me to say, what's true for you? I'm modeling to you how to speak my truth, and you that might shut you down even more. But if you need time to think about that, make some time with me, because I'm here to listen to your truth too. And you can even go back to him and say that if that wasn't part of the conversation, because connection isn't born from one conversation. It is the continuation of good conversation after productive conversation after productive conversation. And one conversation can unravel so much that we have to really work at continuing to establish healthy, good conversations. So well done.
I love that. Thank you so much. I did do some of that, but it doesn't hurt to do a little bit more. This is someone I live with and I want to have a great relationship with. So yeah, thank you.
In my house on Saturdays, we have a family meeting where everybody gets to say what's up for them. And it takes about an hour, and it's been a game changer. So I don't know if it's something you can implement, but it's another story circle.
I was thinking the same thing. I was even thinking like, and if he doesn't want to clean, what other contribution does he want to offer? Anyway, Deborah Ann.
Hi. Giant thank you and blessings to speakers and music. And every time, Maureen, you went like inconsistent. I was like, oh gosh. This morning I was talking to a friend. Okay, there's a book out there by Mama Gina, Manual for, I think, Marriage. And like the first chapter is, you gather a group of women, or maybe not women, you gather people who are willing to commit. First of all, I can only brag about my husband, talk about the pleasurable, like reset the framework. And I'm saying all this out loud because I realized I have some dear friends that I complain on a regular basis about my husband. And I was like, this morning, I think I need to practice just bragging alone in my head. Like it's a new conversation. And what is the truth? And maybe I do have some, even as I said, the blame and complain, it's so old. I don't know the full truth in this moment, but I'm speaking out loud to say, I want to practice this differently. What I speak, what I think. And I guess my other takeaway is the pause before I speak. And I've used silence as a very mean, like someone said, well, it's, like sort of stomp around in silence. That's not real or true either. So I just appreciate all that was said. And I just wanted to acknowledge, for me, it feels like hard work or new work. It takes practice, and you gave me permission. I can fail and I get to practice again. And I have a gift of friends and family and loved ones. I can just practice this speaking thing because I was fairly quiet for a long time. And so it's new. And I just thank the possibilities. Thank you.
That's awesome, Deborah Ann. I mean, awesome. You want to speak to the man you want to be married to.
Where you went.
You want to speak to that and to nurture that, and to what you focus on increases. So yeah. Oh, we're going to hold that in prayer for you and for your marriage. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, what a wonderful growth edge and adventure that you're on with this. Like, it's exciting. I can feel like the joy and the excitement and the growth, like, and bravo for being willing to be completely honest with yourself.
Yeah.
On where your edge is now for growth. Like, that's everything.
Yeah. That criticism can feel like termites in the foundation. If you're being criticized all the time, it's just like, just say something nice. You know what I mean? So it's like, words are powerful. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Deborah Ann. Justine, hi.
Good morning, everybody. What a great talk. You suggested I write a limerick, and I wrote a limerick, which is kind of funny, which I don't know, maybe I could share that. But the other thing, the faucet metaphor has really been in my head because somebody, Justin Michael Williams, who I've been doing a transformational coaching meditation teacher training with, talked about, I said, you know, sometimes I just feel like I'm overflowing with, I've got so many things going on. And he said something, and I don't remember where this came from, about the faucet being what we tend to do when we're overflowing with ideas and stories, and we have a lot going on, is we were like, oh, I have too much going on, I'm going to shut the faucet off. But what we really need to do is just get a bigger sink or a bigger bucket. And I don't know, when someone just shared about the faucet, and then I just thought about how my toilet was not working. It was spraying water, and my aunt and uncle were visiting. They're like, you got to call a plumber. I'm like, gotta call a plumber, crap, you know. And then I talked to a friend of mine. He's like, no, you don't need to call. This is how you're going to do it. You're going to go to the Home Depot. You're going to buy this pump. And I'm like, what? So I went to Home Depot and I bought the pump and then let it sit there a little bit. And then I opened up the instructions. And last night I'm like, I'm leaving today. I got to fix this toilet. So I put the pump in, but it was filling really, really, really slowly. And then I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to sleep. I can't deal with this. And then this morning I'm like, maybe I just need to turn the water, open the faucet more. Open the faucet more, and the toilet flushed. So just have to share that, because it all just kind of makes sense. And these synchronicities we're talking about, and that metaphor of the faucet. And it's the same thing with like our brains. Like you said, write a limerick. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to, like you said, that's silly. But then I opened up the faucet and I wrote a limerick.
Go for it. Let's hear it.
Okay.
Yeah, are you gonna share?
So first of all, I'm going to just share that I was born in Rome, New York. And when I was a little girl, I used to, when people say, where were you born? I would say Rome. And they would be like, really? And I'd be like, New York. So there once was a girl from Rome who had a hard time finding home. She learned to feel small until she could toss her own ball. Then on her own path, she did roam.
Yay. It's interesting how much you can tell us in a limerick. You know,
Well, that's what kind of blew my mind.
broke my heart in a limerick, you know? Oh, so beautiful. And yeah, Richard was saying to me, like, this is like a 3-step story arc in a limerick. And I didn't believe him, but actually turns out it was right. And then from there, you can work on, okay, who is this girl from Rome? And what was the thing that made her feel small? And what's the backstory? And flesh out her character? I mean, it really is just a fun little threshold into like cultivating your story. And I think that story that you started with around the toilet bowl is what we'd call urban poetry. You know, it's like poetry that's using like modern, you know, ideas that I think it's just really interesting when Sky was talking about synchronicities, like you're flushing your shit, you know what I mean? You're clearing your pipes. Like there's actually a lot of metaphor there, as there is a lot of metaphor in everything if we're willing to turn on that side of our brain.
And also for me, I fixed my disposal. Like in the last couple of months, I fixed a disposal and fixed things I thought I could never do, that I need a man around to do that, or I'm going to hire somebody. And oh my God, I did go to Home Depot and it cost me $20 and I did it myself. So.
Well done.
I get it. I've been doing a bunch of that myself lately.
These are very empowering stories.
Yeah. Thanks, Justine. Okay. Well, I just wanted to add one thing too about this talk, which is, you know, we can use our tongue in so many different ways. We can use it to give someone a tongue lashing. We can use it to hold our tongue.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of mother tongue, of like using our tongue and our language for what really gives life and what's nourishing and what we would love to experience. And we may, if we find ourselves using our tongue to lash out, maybe we need to go into that silence for a little bit to hold our tongue and just sit and be, and then begin to move into that mother tongue that will nourish us and give our experience the life that we would love to live. And I saw that John put in the comments that that's why he calls his bride his bride. even under the present circumstances, he's using his mother tongue to bring the experience that he loves. Yes, John? Yeah. Thank you
beautiful.
for that.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for
Anything else
sharing.
you want to say before we bring it back to Dear Dog Feather to finish it out?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a summer of storytelling, and of the mother tongue, and of, finding our words and our way to, support, like John, the life we actually want to be living. Yeah. And there was a program I was watching the other day called Tiny Beautiful Things or something like that. And she says in it, the 3 things I know for sure, and it was written by Cheryl Strand, who wrote a couple of really great books, but she said, I know for sure is I'm my mother's daughter, I'm my daughter's mother, and I am an accomplished writer. I just haven't accomplished it yet.
Love that.
I know. I do
Relate
too.
to that.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. And so, like, you are your father's son, you are your son's father. Like, find yourself in the lineage of your life, and then call forth the true story that you really want to tell, that you might be nervous about telling, that you might not have ever told anyone before, that you might not even feel like you have the vernacular or, a vocality for. But together we can help each other tell the stories that actually benefit not just ourselves, but everyone. And that is what I'd say about that.
And so it is.
So it is.
And Dear Dog Feather, I pass it back to you for more of your beautiful music.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the lovely talk, Maureen, and everybody. This song doesn't really have a name. I think it's called Folky Thing. So. False start. Out in the garden there's a patient flower bed, but it's all choked in angry nettles, everything you loved is dead. The climbers couldn't find the trellis, so they went up the walls instead. It could be nice out there now that the weather's fine, but you can't see it from inside your house where it's raining all the time. It never seems to clear the air though, or wash away the grime. We're out on the weekend, asking around for the last time that anyone saw you. Down in the harbor there's a ship waiting to crew. You only have to show up in your hash and tell them what to do. They say the winds are in your favor, but that means fuck all to you. But down on the water it's as calm as anything, certainly calmer than your sitting room with its smoke clouds lowering and flotsam from the trouble in the winter and jetsam from the spring. You're stuck in the shallows, trying to drown out the last time that anyone saw you. Down in the anchor there's your brother and your friends. They're only doing what they've always done. You're not missing anything. You can pick up where you left off any time that you decide to wander in. I'll stop asking after you just the way you said, but that's the way you think that keeps kicking you in the head. left us much to work with. You just leave everything unread. No one will ask you, nobody minds, but we're running out of ways to remind you. You just took a wrong turn. It happens sometimes. You can't always wait for someone to find you.
Thank you, dear dog feather.
Thank
Next
you.
week we have Brenda Maria, formerly known as Mia, who will be giving the talk. So she'll be speaking about, I think, willingness and the shadow. So come on back for our conversation next week and have a beautiful week.
God bless everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Dog Feather, for that. That was gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Thank you.